4, 3. Oh, and I'm already live. I screwed everything up. Oh no, I have to run away now.
You always tank the intros.
I always do. Yeah, it's getting to be a brand that I'm stealing from Behind the Bastards.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yep, exactly. All right, so welcome to, I guess, Insurrection with Brenton Lengel, secret post debate. God, what the fuck was that?
That was my friend Brenton Lengel contacted me and asked me to do a debate breakdown, and I was thinking, wow, normally I have a long story to tell people about like the things I was doing today, but I really didn't do anything today, and that's going to be difficult. But instead, I get to open this up by bitching that I just wasted 3.5 hours of my life watching the dumbest shit that I think I've seen in like a good 10 years at least, and I was in the US militaries, and that's saying something.
That was like that was like the length alone was.
I could
it
have
was
watched I could have watched Lawrence of Arabia, the longer director's cut, which is like my favorite movie.
You could watch like the freaking you could watch like the extended edition of fucking Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I could have listened to like a Wagnerian opera. Oh, most of one because there's like 5 hours, but still, like it's the principle.
Oh my
I
lord!
went through
Oh,
2 cigars listening to this shit.
that was the I am downing freaking mead
Oh,
because I need Viking blood after this.
I'm drinking an aviation, which is 2 parts gin, half an ounce of creme de violette, half an ounce of maraschino liqueur, and lemon juice.
Excellent. So that debate, just to catch people up, if they didn't subject themselves to, don't.
Don't
It's
do
awful. I'm going to put it out on this channel. Don't watch it.
You must not read from the book.
Oh, just let me endure this pain. So I just did a debate, like a panel debate with a couple people I didn't know. Stardust, who I'd met and was irrationally aggressive towards me. I'm still not sure if that's a bit or if I somehow actually pissed her off.
I think that was a bit because she was doing that to everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well,
I don't know her either.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so we had people. We had Alex Stein 99. Oh my god. We had Nick Fuentes, who did literally drop like freaking hate speech in the debate. And I'm at least happy that like everybody else like fucking yelled at him. But like, come on, James, you gotta moderate better than that, because he did that on purpose. Yeah, so debating Nick Fuentes, Lauren Southern, Destiny appeared out of nowhere like it was freaking WrestleMania.
It's like the first time I've ever been happy to see Destiny.
Yeah, he was actually he was I felt he was one of the saner voices within this cavalcade of madness. There was a blonde woman who I kept forgetting who she was and that she was in the debate.
Yeah, I thought that was like Lauren Southern for a minute, and that she had like 2 spaces. But I guess I just have like face blindness for fascists.
Yeah, I don't. Oh my god! And then we also had a frog guy named Doobie, who pretended to be black.
Yeah, what was that about, man?
I have no freaking clue. If you
because I'll admit to you, because I'm sure we'll discuss this, but like this was supposed to be a talk about the war on women, which is like a demonstrable social thing that's going on in our society, and we're 2 white guys. I mean, I have a medical condition where I'm a disembodied voice. We're 2.
You are in a way the most abused and discriminated against. Those without a body.
Yeah, it's a tragedy. It's difficult to smoke. Anyway, this like degenerated into like just a nightmare. But like I'll be honest with you, I had like other tabs open for most of this, and like I was playing Blitz chess, and I come back over to the debate, and then his like avatar goes away, and it's like this little white dude. And I'm like, he was saying he was black. Am I missing something? Do I have to? I'm not rewinding this because I'm not doing it again. But like,
I love how like Nick Fuentes made a huge thing about that, because of course, yeah, and so there was him. He was like a frog guy for a while. Yeah, these. By the way, this is perfect. Thank you for this. These debate panels are really confusing us to the point of them. Yes.
You know what? I really wanted to bitch about this because this is like everything that's wrong with like, and I'm not including you necessarily in this, but like debate bro shit culture on the
Yeah.
internet right now. Like I think you came prepared. I think Stardust came prepared, and Destiny had prepared remarks about this exact subject.
Hmm.
But like everybody else in that panel didn't come prepared for this. They just came with a fucking script. None of them knew what the hell they were talking about on like any of these issues. They were looking for like dunkable moments, and they
Hmm.
were looking to do their little like grifty scripts so they can get clicks on their pages or whatever, and they're not
Yeah.
actually interested in debating or like advancing the ideas or examining like what's happening in the world. And it just degenerates into a dumb clusterfuck of 3.5 hours of people trying to like meme on each other, I guess very poorly, because
It was
the
really bit. I liked some of the banter because I got to
yeah.
point out that my theory that Nick Fuentes is a addict, and he's like literally addicted to saying the most controversial things he can for the shots of dopamine. I expected him to say something to that. He kind of didn't. Were you watching during that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know about Fuentes because
Hmm.
honestly, like, he's like a guy who's glommed on to like a larger fascist movement to
Hmm.
make money. So I try not to like sully my hands on so lowly a creature. But um, oh, I see Connor, our mutual friend, is in the
Uh,
chat. Hey, Connor, how you
hey,
doing, brother?
Connor. Yes,
Uh,
I debated
there wasn't a
Lauren and
debate.
Nick.
Don't listen to him.
Yeah, okay, you're right. It wasn't. It was a crazy shouting match. Um, but
Lauren
not even
Southern, like,
that. And James got mad at me for interrupting when, like,
Lauren Southern got out of there faster than the first white bitch off the Titanic.
I
Like,
want to debate her on
that was,
capitalism now because
I think,
her take on capitalism is it is excruciatingly mind melted. And like I was just like sitting there with like listening to her say it's corporatism and stuff. I'm like, oh, let me at
corporatism
her.
is capital. I did have that in my notes here. Like corporatism is capitalism.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, hang on.
yeah,
I have to clarify something really quickly.
yeah.
Corporatism is not capitalism. What people mean when they say corporatism is they mean corporatocracy, as in corporations running capitalism and having control over the government. Corporatism is a completely separate philosophy that involves breaking down society into corporate groups. That is what the corp is. It's not from corporation, it's from corporeal or corporal, however you want to say it, of the body. So the idea is with corporatism is that you govern a country as you would a human body. The country is like the human body, and the hand and the foot and they all work together and shit. And there's some Christian theology about this, but yes, that is what corporatism is, and everyone gets that wrong.
Like I just did, I guess. But
Yeah,
what
that's all
what
right.
what
You
they
know what they
call
mean.
corporatism these days is simply
Hmm.
capitalism. And I thought it was
Yeah.
interesting that most of the right wingers, while I was taking notes on this,
Hmm.
which got more and more irreverent as I was taking notes, um,
I'm
like
sorry I
all the
made you take notes. It's awesome though.
yeah. Like most of them were just complaining about like issues in capitalism, like that both
Hmm.
parents have to work. There's this weird obsession that they had the whole time with like cubicles. The woman on the bottom of the panel,
Hmm.
whose name I didn't commit to memory, was kept saying about like HR departments, and they're gonna put you in the cubicles. And I'm like, what's like, does she think like that women only work in like cubicles? Because when I go out shopping here, it's a lot of women who are working a lot of service jobs.
Yeah.
uh, there were women when I was in the military. There are women working at the doctor's office I go to. There's a woman who runs the shooting range that I was at today, where a
I
boot.
have worked in cubicles,
Yeah.
and I have managed people who work in cubicles. So we got rid of them when I took over the New York City offices because I used to run like an entire office of salespeople for nonprofit arts organizations, and we just did like an open floor plan. It was a lot better, but yeah, it felt like they got their idea of like what normal people do from like '90s movies or something.
Yeah, it's interesting too because they kept talking about like um human nature, which is like anytime as a rule that you hear someone talking about human nature and in air quotes, it's the most
Yeah.
pseudo intellectual bullshit you're going to hear all day. Because like
Hey, and I got to say the Emma Goldman quote.
you did, that was good. I would have actually been referring to Simone de Beauvoir
Hmm.
at one point because they were talking about women's work. I guess a lot of them were
Hmm.
women being more nurturing, women working in the house, women doing domestic things. De
Hmm.
Beauvoir specifically addresses that. You can actually find interviews where she talks about this on YouTube that are
Yeah.
subtitled because she was a French woman, and the French with their
Well, yeah,
language.
I mean, so like being a housewife is in people should know that that's like incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
Um,
And de Beauvoir talks about that, but what she specifically also mentions that I think is interesting in The Second Sex, which is a great book, is that she talks about how like patriarchy actually shuts women out of more interesting and fulfilling work,
mhm.
uh, which it does, and which they're highlighting kind of as an accident,
Yeah.
um, while ignoring the fact that patriarchy exists. And I'm sorry I
Mhm.
interrupted you.
No, 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 no. That's fine. You please. I was apparently interrupting people all night. I feel like it's weird that James focused on me with that because
It was like you were Donnie in The Big Lebowski. It's like, Donnie, you have no concept of this conversation.
oh my god.
That was so weird. And one of them was like on their own stream talking while their mic was muted a few times. Because
Oh shit.
I clicked one of their links, and like I forget which one of them it was, but they were saying like I killed it on that China question about their population rate. And I'm like, no, no, you
Yeah.
didn't. I forget which one of them it was, and I don't want to put them on
Oh,
blast too much.
Progressive American wants. Did you watch the debate? Progressive American Connor,
Oh,
did you watch the
he's pro-
debate?
don't make him watch the debate,
I won't
Brent.
make him watch the debate.
Don't be
You want to
mean.
come on? Okay,
There we go.
I will bring you on here. This will be like the debate. We'll
I'll
just keep
vouch for.
bringing people in because
I'll vouch.
Gemt over here says these remind me of '90s wrestling. Yes, they would just rush the ring. That it felt like wrestling, particularly with the surprise appearance of Destiny.
He ran. He ran it on your side, though. I guess so. I mean,
Yeah, I was happy about that. I was worried as to which position he'd actually take because he's had some very he's had some reactionary takes lately. That's how he got banned from Twitch.
he got banned from
Um,
Twitch. I don't know. I
yeah,
really don't
yeah.
follow this guy, but
It was. I actually like him to tell you the truth.
yeah,
I know like a lot of people don't like him, and I've seen him have very bad takes before, but
yeah,
overall, like I mean, he's reasonable to talk to, and I think out of the entire debate, I enjoyed listening to him talk more than pretty much anyone else.
yeah.
Um, oh, send me the link in the Twitter chat, please. My sister's birthday was today. I didn't see it. I'm literally in. Sorry, this is live. Okay, so you don't want to go live, Progressive. What do you want the link for? Do you want the link to the actual debate?
Oh no, you don't want to watch that,
Oh, you
brother.
poor bastard. I really should. Normally, I link them in these. Hang on, I got to pull up modern day debate. So Bobby, explain this thing to these people.
So, like, instead of having like a debate what normally happens, where it's 2 to 4 people in a conversation debating an issue, this was a panel of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people and a moderator that was supposed to be about the war on women, which again is a demonstrable social phenomenon that's happening in our society,
Mhm.
especially after Roe versus Wade was repealed. Instead, we got like a 3.5 hour meandering panel about like transracialism, turfs, birth
Yeah,
rates, white birth rates, Chinese birth rates, population collapse, which isn't a thing,
yeah.
Chads taking all the women, which isn't a thing.
These
Um,
people's brains have been rotten by the freaking internet.
yeah,
I will
I've
say, by
never.
the way, though, I think Stardust was one of the more cogent people. I don't think
Yeah.
she was completely memeing. So
No, I think Stardust was having a good time with it. Like she was joking with a white supremacist that she's the savior of the white race
that was fucking
as an
awesome.
Indian person. That was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
And that she had like dominion over Buddhism or whatever, or Hinduism.
Yeah,
That was
Hinduism, dominion over Hinduism.
that was
Yeah,
great.
she was kind of pissed that I got the impression she was kind of pissed that I explained that Buddhism, at least in its early phase, which is a fact, is Hinduism stripped for export. Like, there's a huge crossover, and like the idea that Buddhism is tied to one country or one like group of people is like the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard in my life. Like,
Well,
if you understand Buddhism, it makes no sense.
I mean, almost nothing exists in a vacuum. I mean, even early Buddhist philosophers were demonstrably influenced by Greek cynics that came down the Silk Road. I
Mm.
mean, and then vice versa. The Greek cynics were wound up being influenced by Eastern philosophies. They found a tomb in Londinium, which is now London, obviously,
Mhm.
of like a guy from China
Mhm.
in like whatever, like through 200-300 AD or something. Like the idea that like we exist in like isolated like the West and the East
Mhm.
It's placeholders from like elementary or like high school history class, so you can kind of take in one region at a time. It's not like a thing.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, progressive American. Yeah. So during the debate, I got to call. I got to call Nick Fuentes a heretic.
You did actually call him a heretic.
Yeah, and he's like, "Why?" And I wanted to get into it because, like, yeah, he's rejecting Vatican II.
Oh,
He's
he's rejecting Vatican II?
yeah.
Does he speak Latin?
No, he doesn't. I guarantee you, he doesn't go to church. Like,
No, I'm sure he doesn't.
there is no fucking way he does. Again, I think he was lying the entire time about everything. Um, Oddly enough, I found him kind of affable. Like, I did not expect to be able to talk to him as
Yeah,
much, and I expected him to be a lot more aggressive, particularly when you consider like me fighting with fucking JF.
yeah.
Um, though also, yeah, a lot of these fascists don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm overestimating them when I go in, like overestimating the fascist rage that I think is gonna.
Well, in this case, his whole brand is, it seems to be like being like the I don't care, the meme guy and whatever. So like even if you did piss him off, like you wouldn't
Yeah,
know about it to your face unless you really got under his skin.
yeah. But yes, I pointed out that he was probably an addict, which I like, and he didn't respond to.
Yeah.
Um, so at some point, like freaking Alex Stein tried to drag me for being bisexual, which is just really weird.
Just making a lot of comments about man juice all over everybody. Like that dude,
Constantly.
the dude's like it was the first note I took about him.
Hmm.
I'll scroll back up because I took 4 fucking pages of
Him and
notes.
the frog guy, who like was halfway leftist and halfway seemed to be a little alt right.
Like I don't know what his deal was. Like like it wasn't cogent. He wasn't prepared for the actual topic, and he just started like I don't know. Like he
Like
didn't try to
I
debate.
wanted to talk about, and I didn't even get to.
Yeah,
I wanted to talk about how the state and our larger society
yeah,
like literally injures women via structural violence,
yeah.
and nobody like even touched that.
No, no one even touched the existence of patriarchy, the existence of like the system that we've culturally set up about
Yeah,
like
none
relegating
of them
women to
knew
certain
about
things.
kyriarchy, and that was really obvious.
No, none of them have read a book in like fucking 10 years, Brent. Like Jesus Christ. Like I mean maybe
Uh,
Southern did, but like
mhm.
she started off the whole thing by lying. She said like no one's forcing women to be pregnant. There are literally laws on the books in
Yeah,
states that are forcing women to be pregnant. She said there's nothing preventing people from getting ectopic pregnancies. There've been like multiple dozen of cases that have been publicized in the news and probably hundreds more of women who can't get treatments for ectopic pregnancies. Uh like she just starts off lying, but like at least she was lying coherently. And then you get Alex coming in, who I'll give him this. He's kind of funny to
hmm,
watch, like in the same way that you would watch like a dumpster fire. But
yeah,
like he's saying like feminism forces women to work. That's not like a tenet of feminism. Capitalism forces women to work because they have to like eat or starve.
yeah,
Saying women's jobs are to raise kids is actually like misogynistic and patriarchal.
yeah.
It's actually damages men too. And then he says like the gay mafia is out to get people, and I'm like the gay mafia only exists in Arrested Development, and it only exists in like the very last season of
Oh
Arrested Development
man,
too.
I should have. Oh, I should have seized on that. I didn't even think about the fucking gay mafia.
Yeah,
This is me being like a bad bisexual because I figured out I was bisexual like much later on in life, and so I
there you
never
go.
really had much direct interaction with the gay community like as a guy who's bisexual. And also the gay community can be really weird about bisexuals, so you know.
Yeah. I'm just milk toast.
Yeah,
Like,
that's all right. We'll get you eventually.
yeah, good luck.
No,
I'm not much of a get.
yeah. But no, I mean, like, what was so weird about the whole thing was, like, I think I said it at one point with Alex Stein. It was like someone transplanted the mind of a middle schooler into a semi-adult body. Like,
Yeah.
because the way he was going after me and the kinds of things he thought were cool and funny, like, it's literally shit that we thought was cool and funny in middle school.
I feel like, and this is like completely armchair.
Mhm.
Never met the guy in real life. Probably never will. speculation here. I feel like he got bullied a lot at some point, and
Oh, definitely.
I feel like he's trying to like compensate by like being like the
I to tell you the truth, I think it kind of broke him
yeah
because I think he learned a lot of the like really childish ways of bullying. Like if you watched him in that other debate
yeah.
that we did, where his face contorted into a red goblin mask,
That was so weird.
and then he ran away. Yeah,
That
like
was such a weird night because I had just come back from. I'll tell you offline because it ends weirdly. But I
mhm.
just had like a really weird date right before that, and then I watched that debate.
Holy shit, yeah. So I don't know though. Yeah, it was. I don't know because he kept throwing that at me, and I didn't really react. So I
Good.
don't know if he thought he had something there. Did it look like he had something?
I don't think he had anything the whole time. Like his whole shtick was that like the feminists want to like put you in the cubicle because the other lady said it.
Yeah, and
The
he's
gay mafia.
weirdly, and he was weirdly, still weirdly focused on trans people. What the fuck?
Because he probably his browser history probably has a bunch of trans people in it, bro. It's like
Yeah,
how all these. And I know I'm not like being as high minded as I usually am, but
yeah.
like this one kind of fucking
This
got
was
to
not
me.
the debate for the high-minded shit.
This wasn't a
Um,
debate. I did write down that the voice didn't match the frog. I was not expecting that voice to come out of that frog.
I don't. Yeah, apparently he runs like a really big politics server, which might explain
Oh,
why he was kind of all over the place.
well,
Like
like
it
he
seemed
doesn't know the fuck what he's talking about politics, though. Sorry.
fair enough, but most people who are in political servers don't know what the fuck they're talking about when it comes to politics.
Sorry. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's all right. I mean,
Yeah.
I felt like he occasionally would have something good to say, but he would
Yeah.
always say it in like a really weird way, and I couldn't tell if he was serious or if he was like trying to be Socratic and like point out the inconsistencies in the far right position. I asked, so Nick Fuentes said that he wanted to go live in the Middle East, which is
Yeah.
obviously a lie.
He also said like he said something that bothers me in general, and I guess this is a good place to get it off my chest. Is there's just like a really racist thing that people think about Afghanistan and Vietnam, especially, is that
Mhm.
like simple, dumb, illiterate farmers like beat the greatest like military superpower on the planet. Like
Yep.
during Vietnam, the Viet Cong had like the support of the Soviet Union, who sent like special forces, weapons, industrial technology, surface to air missiles,
Yeah.
and
Well, and and
trained up
it's
a
not
professional
just
military.
that.
Yeah.
The Viet Cong had just gotten off fighting freaking Japan,
And
like,
France.
and France, and winning
Yeah.
both times.
And,
Like,
and and in Afghanistan, you're talking about the Taliban that I mean the guys who fought the Soviet Union are long past fighting age by the time we
yeah,
invaded, but like you're talking about a country that had like the tacit support of Iran and the secret support of Pakistan in a lot of cases, got like Chinese weapons somehow. I'm not bitter.
yeah.
uh,
Hang on for just a second, because I got to bring this on here.
yeah,
So, Christian Stewart, I love you. Keep your sex to yourself. I would love to.
yeah.
That would have been wonderful. Had Alex Stein not made that like a major route to try and attack me. Like, I didn't fucking bring that shit up.
Yeah, and then like Fuentes did a couple times insult you about it, but it's
Oh,
just
he
like
did? Oh, yeah.
y-
Fuck, I barely even noticed it.
he barely even noticed it because it wasn't as unhinged as the other guy.
Oh, shit.
When
Yeah.
the literal fascist is less unhinged than the other guy.
Mhm.
Like, I don't even know how to classify Alex politically, other than like he just does not like
He's
trans people,
nuts. He's just nuts.
and he
Um,
hates vaginas too. I guess
uh, oh,
he,
well,
he did that whole thing with
again,
the
it's like
key.
you couldn't take Nick Fuentes seriously sometimes because it was like, what was he saying? Was he really an incel that hated women? I get the impression he's a vol cell, but then he refused that. What the
Alleged.
fuck?
There's a lot of weird stuff that I hear about him, and I try not to as much as possible. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, this is kind of another thing I don't like about like debate bro culture. And I can get off my chest again here, so I can feel a little better. Is that like people like Fuentes or Alex or JF or even Lauren Southern get
Mhm.
treated as if they have like a valuable, interesting like perspective for the purpose
Yeah.
of putting on debates for views and money and stuff, and they really don't, and it's very obvious when they start talking, but they get an audience and they get like a legitimacy when you host them as
Yeah,
if they're
because they bring
legitimate
in
like
more
this.
people to watch your stream, and like you
Exactly.
saw how many comments were in there. I mean,
I purposely don't read MDD comments.
oh no, never read MDD comments. They're worthless. But like I'm talking specifically about like the super chats.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
there
that
was
was
a
one of the most super
million.
chats that I've ever seen before. And interestingly, they were not all attacking me, which is rare.
Yeah. Well, you didn't hardly get to speak.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I felt like I felt like I was as aggressive as I could be with
Yeah.
James, like telling me to shut up.
Mm.
Like,
Well, because you were trying to, I think you might have done that because you were trying to like turn it into like a debate on the topic, and it
yeah,
wound up being a
yeah.
panel about nothing.
Hey, progressive. The frog is yeah, it was about absolutely nothing. Well, no, it was about all the weird shit that like haunts people
Yeah,
from like culture that is not it's attached to the culture war. It has nothing to do with politics, you
yeah.
know. Unless, except in the fact that it can be used to mobilize people who are affected by the same amount of brain rot.
I mean,
Um,
you wound up starting to talk about like Chinese birth rates and stuff, and it
oh my
was just so
God.
weird.
Yeah, then they're like, "Oh, China's it's the most populous nation in the freaking world."
Yeah, and then oh yeah, the other person was saying that their demographics are going to collapse because of like the one child policy. Um,
You know,
I guess.
I never got to say this,
Yeah.
but they think people are just going to stop having do they not understand that they call it like sex drive? Like having kids, and I loved it that me and Destiny were the only two parents on the panel, and I was the
Yeah.
only parent who was apparently taking over his kids, unless Destiny was joking about that. Um, like they're sitting there and oh, by the way, when I pointed out that that was abstinence only education was the reason why people were saying that like, oh, you know, I'm giving up my life for the child and this isn't real. Did you feel like that hit? Did you see that, or were
Yeah,
you
that
off?
would. Yeah, I know. That was a good line.
Yeah. Well, it's again, it's like they're seeing the effects of capitalism and you know U.S. government propaganda, but they're not seeing the structure above it. You know that's causing those issues. They also didn't seem to like so beyond like the structure above it, like beyond the incentives of capitalism to like you know do literally everything that they're complaining about.
Right, like as
Um,
an example of that, like they talked about Europe having low birth rates and Japan having low
yeah.
birth rates. One of the biggest driving factors in that is that those places have extremely high costs of living.
Yeah.
Like,
Hang on for just a second.
yeah, no, of course.
Yeah. So Connor, there was a guy with like a frog
He's a
pit, like
VTuber.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, he runs like some sort of big Discord. Apparently, I'd never heard of him, but you know that I do not have my head in that part of the internet.
Good.
But yeah, so it was just like he had like a frog with like an eyebrow piercing or some weird shit like that.
Had
He was
wings too.
supposedly on my side, though. Then later they got into all of that weird race realism shit.
Yeah, race realism and then like borderline turf stuff. And I was surprised because one of them was a trans woman, and
Yeah,
I was like, she was making an argument that trans women shouldn't be allowed in all the spaces that cis women are, and I was like, what what is going on? Like,
she's doing the thing. This is my opinion,
yeah,
just my opinion. I could be wrong. She's doing the thing where you're a member of a persecuted minority and you throw other members of that persecuted minority under the bus to try to make nice with the overall society. So she's trying to be like the trans woman you can talk to, one of the good ones. You know, like that's my subjective idea of what was maybe happening. You know, I could be wrong. She wasn't as bad as like I don't know Milo. Milo does that shit.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, like agreeing with the turf shit was just
It was
really fucking weird.
it was really weird. Like the whole thing was really weird. And again, like the subject was supposed to be the war on women, so we could have talked about um, birth control rights being rolled back
Mm-hmm.
because the Supreme Court's about to roll back not Obergefell, that's gay marriage, but Griswold v. Connecticut. You could talk about you tried to talk about Roe versus Wade being repealed, but that went off the rails. You can talk
Completely
about
off the rails. I feel like we might have come back to it if Lauren Southern hadn't left as quickly
yeah,
as she did. I seriously want to debate her on
yeah.
capitalism
There
or
we
hell, abortion.
but like you could have talked about the wage gap, which never, I don't think, barely even came up. You
That
could,
was in my opening statement, but I ran out of time because a 2-minute opening statement, like you might have noticed, I was a little jerkier in my
yeah.
delivery. And it's because I was skipping like whole paragraphs because I was like, oh shit, I got to fit this into 2
Well,
minutes.
because there are like 9 of you, so I can understand that. But instead, we started talking about like cubicles, like the natural social order, which again isn't a thing because humans don't live in a state of nature and haven't for like many thousands of
Yeah,
years.
which I
Out,
pointed out, and then
yeah,
they somehow just decided that didn't happen.
I was very proud of you for that. And then you're right. Like, and I got a little angry in my notes here. I said these people didn't read anything for this, or any fucking thing for this is rather what I did. Because I'm already cursing on your channel, and I
Yeah,
apologize.
that's all
But
right. This is probably already going to be like somewhat demonetized.
I'm sorry, man.
Yeah. By the way, real quick, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
Destiny, stand on your own because Destiny is a gross shill, in my opinion. Again, I felt like I did a good job of standing on my own. Bobby, what was your feeling
Yeah, I
on
thought you
that?
did pretty good because especially like there were like 4 people ganging up on you over like the
Yeah.
Rachel Dolezal thing, like bizarrely.
Yeah,
Like,
several of them being and I love that he pointed out that I wasn't a freaking progressive.
yeah.
It was like the same thing like with the trans woman, who I literally, by the way, I
Yeah.
had no freaking clue. Like,
Oh,
um, but
whatever.
like she said to me at some point, she's like, yeah, you're doing this on behalf of me, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
Well, because like Alex started just bringing up like trans women randomly in sports, and
Yeah,
then
and
uh,
I told him that it was a completely off topic because it was. Just go back and watch the debate that we did.
it's funny too because they kept asking like, what are the great women empires? Like, Catherine the Great was like a great woman emperor.
Oh shit, I
Uh,
forgot about that.
y-
Yeah, and I
y-
guess arguably Queen Elizabeth.
yeah, but they're making a show about Catherine de Medici now, which is going to be like pretty lit.
Mhm.
Uh, the Dahomey Amazons are actually getting a movie finally, which is a really cool story about like an all-female like Praetorian Guard type unit in African Kingdom
That's
that
cool.
fought off Europeans. Yeah. What's her
Though
name?
I would say that's not necessarily empires, but yeah,
Uh,
because like,
well, they called it an empire
yeah.
on the map. So,
Oh, okay.
but what's her name? The lady who was in How to Get Away with Murder is going to be in it. I forget what her name is, but it doesn't really matter. Nick
So,
tried to
so
talk
you
about
you actually think my point was incorrect when I said that like empires have really only been a thing that we've been doing for the last 5,000 years, and they're
well,
primarily monotheistic cultures that do it.
well, I wouldn't call Rome and the early empire monotheistic.
Oh shit! You're right.
Nor Alexander, nor Persia,
Mhm.
or
Fair
a
enough.
few other. I think you did kind of make a good point in that they tend to be like monolithic social structures, and
Hmm.
that those monolithic social structures tend to be patriarchal, which Rome is the great example of. Um, and then women who do rise up in those tend to be like outliers who overcome the system.
Yeah,
And you don't want to build a system. I don't think if you had
on
to
outliers.
on outliers. You don't want to have like the Rawlsian like veil of ignorance where like, do you want to be born into this society where you could be a woman and you would have to overcome all these things just to have like a normal life? That's one of the reasons why we should like kind of take down patriarchy so women and men can or people of whatever gender identity can equally participate in society without having to overcome like structural obstacles both like de jure and de facto to enjoying life and like just living decently. Um, like if we stick with like the Romans, like women couldn't like legally own property in a lot of cases. Divorce was a thing, but it was difficult in like the worst parts of the empire. Um, but you have women like Messalina, Octavia the elder, who was I think it's Octavia the Elder, who's Augustus's mother. Anyway, a lot of women have very influential positions in the empire, but they had to overcome an extremely patriarchal society. Whereas if you had a more plural society, you'd have women contributing equally, and you would make the society, if anything, like
Mhm.
quote unquote stronger. I don't think there's a way to really measure strength in terms of society, which is something that came up a few times. We want a strong, succeeding society, but then we never get a metric for what that means.
Yeah.
They also said like women are smarter than men, but like I'm
No,
assuming.
they said that men are smarter than women.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. By
I'm
the
just
way,
dumb.
the what I have heard on this
Yeah.
is that what I've heard supposedly when it comes to like male and female intelligence is that women on average tend to be smarter than men, but men on average tend to have more on like the extreme ends of the spectrum. I
Huh.
don't know if that's true because the people who made the intelligence tests are men.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is like IQ, like we've established like recently, or not recently, ever since the IQ test was invented, really, that like it's not a real like end all be all measure of intelligence.
Certainly not.
It's a specific measure of your emotional, or not your emotional, your quote unquote intellectual age attainment at a certain
Yeah.
level.
At a certain age, it's really only works on children, and
Yeah.
it's comparing them to other children. So like if you take an IQ test as an adult, it's meaningless.
Intelligence isn't like a stat in real life, like it is in an RPG, you know? Like, but that's what
Yeah.
people tend to think, and it's weird because I remember reading a thing because I play a lot of chess lately, and they noticed that if they did an experiment where a woman didn't know that she was playing against a man,
Hmm.
and they were of equal skill, then it was like 5 games to 5. But if you told the woman she was playing a man because of like being told that men are smarter than women and better at chess, it wound up being like 7-3.
Yeah, because she choked.
Because she choked, exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Consistently, because it was 10 games, but yeah.
yeah. But no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
These are all
it was.
topics that could have come up in a debate about the war on fucking women.
It would have been wonderful. And like the thing is that like for this one in particular,
Yeah.
I did much less research than I normally do.
Well, good,
And
because
yeah,
it worked out.
yeah. Because the reason, like, normally I like to spend like some real time, like digging into it. And the way I do my research is I write my opening statement. And as I write my opening statement, I go in and figure out like what's going to be in there. But this was like a 2-minute opening statement. So not only did I fail at being that pithy, but two, like I didn't even get to most of the statistics. I was going to hit really hard the the deaths caused by banning abortion. I was going to go from that to the pay gap and tie that into poverty. And then I was going to continue from the pay gap and poverty into like just the general state of the society where it seems like there's literally nothing women can do that someone's not going to, everyone's going to get mad at you as a woman no matter what you do. Like, oh, are you having sex? Are you not having sex? I'm mad at you now. You know, and even and it was so weird when okay, so Nick Fuentes, when he said that the only roles for women are either mothers or whores, like this is my like English attuned brain tying into that like as a writer, and that's because the virgin and the whore are like major cultural archetypes within Western society. So it's basically like two ideas about femininity that he's somehow narrowing, and he thinks it's like it's and he thinks it's like literal as opposed to just two ways that men in particular have interacted with a number of women, especially if we are kind of socially stunted.
Yeah, and the other one that I wanted to touch on that got really weird for me is that I think Lauren agreed with him, and I'm pretty sure Nick brought this up because I'm looking at my notes around that same
Yeah, because
part of the
there's like
debate.
this whole thing where they're just making nice with each other and pretending it was an argument.
Yeah, it's almost like they're on the same side of an ideological conflict in America, and that like one of them is being rehabilitated. But they talk about like letting women compete in the war of all against all, and that's how you create a strong society, which is a misinterpretation of Hobbes.
Mm-hmm.
And my big behind had to actually sit through and read the entire Leviathan for school. So I'm going to call stolen valor on that because
Yeah,
Hobbes does talk about the war of all against all in the state of nature, but
yeah.
he doesn't say, and none of the social contract theorists actually say this, that that's how societies become strong and cohesive. You become strong and cohesive when you get away from competing
The
of all
war of
against
all
all
against all.
and you start cooperating.
Yeah.
um
Well, and like I kept meaning to bring that up also, but I could only do like one weird Enlightenment philosopher. Shit, though I don't think Hobbes was Enlightenment. He was English Civil War.
Yeah, he was just after that. That was what made him so totalitarian, is that it was a direct reaction to the chaos of the Civil War.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, I would be messed up too coming out of that.
But yeah, so like Hobbes, like I wanted to bring that up because he used war of all against all.
Yeah.
And both him and Destiny, I think, somewhat buy into that. Destiny not quite as much, but I didn't want to trigger Destiny to disagree with me. But he seemed pretty cool with a lot of the shit I was saying.
Yeah, because you were the only one actually like making reasonable points and talking about like hostility towards women, and everyone else was talking about like birth rates and Japan and China, and what about American population collapse because couples aren't going to get together anymore.
Oh
And
my God.
interestingly, heterosexual couples aren't the only way to have kids anymore, because there's all kinds of like artificial insemination and in vitro now.
Yep.
Like,
well, and also there's all different kinds of families.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just because people aren't getting married doesn't mean they're not having kids.
Yeah.
And marriage is like what's really important for people to understand. This idea of like the nuclear family. It is a fiction. Well, it's not a fiction, but it is artificial. It was created by the freaking assembly line.
Yeah.
Like the whole point of the nuclear family was to make sure that the man was sober enough and had people who depended on him, so that he had to come into work constantly and work for like Henry Ford, like, you know, killing his soul with pure drudgery. And at the same time, it meant the breakup of the traditional human families, with the real traditional human families, which are, you know, extended families and clan based. And here's the thing that happens: if you break up a traditional family, well, then that's a whole lot more houses and refrigerators and cars that the capitalists get to sell to us. Because if it's like an actual family functioning in the way that human families have functioned since the dawn of our species, we would be sharing that space, or we would be living very close together. So, you know, you might get, like, say it's an extended family of 10, you know, nuclear families combined. Maybe they're only sharing 5 cars because they don't need 10, you know. So it's economic concerns that specifically benefit the United States empire in the 1940s and 50s. And it's collapsing now because factory work is no longer a major driver in the American economy, because they've moved to the third world.
Well, yeah, and it's ironic too, because like the very system that the right claims to be like advocating for, the nuclear family, was atomized and like consumed by the capitalism that they simultaneously advocate for.
Only the rich can afford in vitro. By the way,
That's
Christine
true.
Stewart, yeah, that's very true. Not only that, only the rich can afford to adopt.
Yeah, it's also true.
This was one of the things that I like had a serious. So I mentioned this earlier. Like, I don't like to bring my personal life into things, but like me and my wife, we have our son, and both of us would very much like to bring in another life into this world. Like, we really want him to have a little brother or sister to grow up. We want him to have a sibling, so that hopefully, if everything works out, when we pass away, he still has someone who's there with him for the rest of his life. You know, and I love kids, and you know, my wife, she, you know, originally wanted 3 kids, but she has a chronic illness, and this illness makes her a perpetual high-risk pregnancy. As a result, and I've said this publicly before, so I'm not really outing anything. My son was born 6 weeks premature.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, he did phenomenally. By the way, also, he was born like right around the same time. Like, I literally was at the hospital, like watching this perfect thing that I had somehow brought into the world, when I start hearing about Trump stealing children from their parents.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
I about hit, like, if you're not a father, you cannot understand like what that is like. Like, it just changes you. And so, like, the idea, like, wait, what the fuck was I even talking about? My anger at Trump just jumped out.
You're talking about the unaffordability of having children in the States.
Yeah. So anyway, we really want a sibling for my son. And we want another child for ourselves as well. And it was always very important for me to pass down my genetics at least once. Just because I'm such a weirdo, I feel like that weirdness needs to be carried through in some way. Someone has to pick up the torch.
You need a couple more.
Yeah. Say what?
You need a basketball team.
Yeah, exactly. But like but I never thought that I'd have more than one kid anyway. It was really my wife that convinced me to have more than one. And so when she was like, the issue here is she's a high risk pregnancy, and they're banning abortion all over the country. We don't want to have an abortion. And in fact, I remember there was a point where we were like just having like a really stressful moment with like bills and stuff, and like someone at some point brought up that we could, get out of the situation. It was just instant, like, no, absolutely not. Like just a wall there.
Yeah.
We were going to have this kid come hell or high water. And so like, but we don't know what will happen with her because she is a high risk pregnancy. So because she is quite likely to be denied this potentially life-saving medical procedure, we are now weighing like, do we try to give my son a brother or sister? Do we make that sacrifice and take that risk, knowing that he could lose his mother and is more likely to lose his mother because of Roe v. Wade? Like, and I lose my wife. It's a horrifying situation that we're actually in. Again, it was something that I wanted to talk about. I talked about it in the abortion debate. But like, people act like this is a very simple issue. It's not, like, on any end of things. Whew. So sorry, that got very heavy very quickly.
No, that's okay, man. It made more sense and was more related to the topic of the debate than pretty much anything that happened in that panel.
Anything that we freaking said. By the way, also, there was something that Christine... Oh, wait, no, I already did that one. Gemt, traditional generational... Yeah, it's way better for society. We are... So, like, the Emma Goldman quote that I went into during the debate, I'm so glad I got to do this. Because it was a panel debate, I actually got to look it up to make sure I got everything, because I don't always remember it completely. But yeah, let me find this. Bobby, you entertain the people while I pull it back up.
Entertain the people. Yeah, let's look at some of my notes. Women played a key role in all the societies that the right-wingers talked about. Allowing women to compete in the patriarchy isn't the leveling effect that people think it is, because you're still living in a patriarchal structure.
Yeah.
And
people irrationally prefer men.
Yeah, I was told by one of the debaters that gay men like to make shoes in San Francisco, and that Brienne of Tarth was going to enlist in the United States military. Which was
my God, I remember that.
Which was really weird. I didn't write down who said that, but I'm guessing.
No, that was Doobie.
Oh, that was Doobie. Oh, that was Doobie. That was the Frogman.
Yeah, that was the Frogman. So he kind of had a point there. What he was trying to say was like, we should let the outliers do what but I hated that he bought into that logic even to begin with.
Yeah. As a rule, just for your lives, guys, if you're talking about like people who are going to go fight our wars, you've never like been a warrior or in the military or studied military policy, don't talk about it, because to people who are like veterans or people who are studying military policy, you sound like little Lord Fauntleroy, and I immediately stopped taking you seriously.
I mean, you heard me like at the thing, like when they're talking about hunting and the endurance of hunting, you just fucking sitting there.
Yeah. Nowadays, I mean, like, well, I took a moose actually in Montana a few years ago, and that was a bitch, because I had to hike up the mountain with my 45-70 lever action, which, if you've seen the new Jurassic Park movies, it's that dumb lever action that the guy from Parks and Rec has. My gun. And we forgot to bring an ATV, so we had to haul this moose by hand down the mountain.
Wow.
It was like 7 guys.
This was a bull moose?
Yeah. Luckiest shot I've ever taken in my life, because it was one bullet.
You are very lucky.
And it was Total accident too, because I literally sneezed as I pulled the trigger and it just went right through the heart.
Yeah, I call them swamp donkeys. So like I've run into moose
Yeah.
like in the wild when I was hiking the Appalachian Trail main to Georgia. They started to show up in oh, I think it was right before the White Mountains.
Yeah.
I ran into like a cow and her calf, like a cow moose. I think that's the term for the female moose. Um, I ran into them like right before I started climbing Musalaki. That was it. It was
Pennsylvania.
right before Musalaki. There's a terrible hostel there that I can't remember the name of, but it should have been called Nickel and Dime because that's how they made their money.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I saw like just the mama moose and her baby. I felt like I was staring at a dinosaur. And then when I like, I think it was in the 100 Mile Wilderness, when I was walking through like day 1 or day 2, I'm basically walking through Mirkwood and I just hear this snort and this, what I thought was a giant boulder moves and it's a freaking bull moose. And I'm just like, oh, what am I going to do? I'd actually heard about another hiker who got nicknamed Moose Killer because he got chased by a moose, and it apparently like chased him around a tree several times. I think it was around mating season, and he like wrapped it on its horns with his trekking poles, and eventually like it ran away or let him just go be himself. But to drag a freaking dead moose down a mountain, and there's just 2 of you?
No, there were 7 of us.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it was a lot easier. If it was less than we only dragged it to the road where we had like a truck, which we winched it into. But I ate moose for like 6 months after that. But the moral of that story is that I used a 450 grain bullet to put it down. I didn't track it with like a spear and fight it in Mortal Kombat. And like the history of hunting, like humans invented like the Adalal, which if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's basically like a handheld spear thrower. Yeah, so you wouldn't have to
the wooden thing that you go like.
Yeah, exactly. So you wouldn't have to use your full strength to fight a mammoth back in like the Neolithic era. This whole like thing about like men are stronger. It's like maybe that's like technically accurate, but like our whole civilization is built on overcoming that.
Yeah. Well, and they're confusing strength with power. By the way, Emily, if you watched the beginning of the debate, Lauren Southern says ectopic pregnancies aren't a thing.
I think she said specifically that there was no law preventing women getting treatments.
Well, she also said that, but she first minimized them, and then she said there's no. But it's not just that there's no law. Like the doctors don't know what they can and can't do, and if they're worried about going to jail for murder for treating a woman with, I mean that happened in Ireland. That's why Ireland became pro-choice, like as a nation.
Yeah,
there was a woman who came in. She had a I don't know if it was ectopic, but basically it was a situation where the fetus was completely unviable. It was going to die. She wanted the baby, and like essentially it was already dead, like brain dead, but it still had a heartbeat. And they waited. The doctors were afraid that if they removed, they'd go to jail. So they waited and waited and waited, and she died of sepsis after the baby died. So she essentially died for nothing because of a very stupid law.
Yeah, and that's happening even now because there was a woman that hemorrhaged at a VA hospital somewhere I think in Missouri.
Mm-hmm. Similar thing happened in Poland. A woman died. A woman almost died in Malta, because Malta is one of the only European nations where abortion is illegal. And she was an American citizen and had to be airlifted to Spain, and they just barely saved her life. And this is something that is personal to me, because I would like my family to grow larger. I love kids. I always have. And I grew up with a brother. I want my son to have that opportunity. He's been asking us lately, which is just heartbreaking because we're sitting there going like, can we do this? Can we not? And I don't know how that story is going to end. But I also remember that, and the whole reason why I brought this up was that I said, well, what if we adopt? And then my wife gave me like the freaking breakdown on what that would cost.
Yeah.
And, I do pretty well.
It's like $100,000, I think.
It is insane. And like, it's so freaking frustrating. And, I would be happy to adopt a kid. Like, and be their father and have them be part of our family. I would love that. And I think Gavin would he'd go 150% into it. My wife, she would be behind it, but we just don't have that kind of money. Most Americans, and we're doing better than most. Most Americans cannot afford a single unforeseen $500 expense without taking on more debt.
Yeah.
So it's just insane. I'm really wondering like what is going to happen with these kids now that, because my wife was like, well, maybe they'll do something in a few years, and I'm just sitting there thinking, no, like it is going to be decades and decades before this damage is undone, and there will be at least one generation of children who grow up who otherwise would have been aborted. And I really do not want to imagine the kinds of hardships they're going to have to deal with as a direct result of that.
Yeah, and it's a result of the subjugation of women in our society.
Man, wouldn't this have been a great thing to talk about in a debate?
War on women. Yeah.
By the way, Bobby, you should know I recommended you because they were having trouble filling the final slot.
I guess if I got beat out by Destiny, I'm okay with that.
No, you got beat out by the frog guy.
Oh, well, fuck my life. You could have let me have that one, Brent. You could have let me live in ignorance.
It had nothing to do with your skill. It had to do with Frog Guy apparently running a major political server.
You could have let me keep that in my back of my head that I got beat up by Destiny and not the Frog Guy, bro. You could have not told me that.
Yeah, I really could have. Oh, shit. Let's turn back time here. Let's Prince of Persia this.
Yeah, like the little social skills there, my friend.
Yeah. Oh my lord.
That's all good.
So hang on, this is from Christine. Good luck with adopting because everyone is having abortions. Yeah. I wish that were the case. Like,
doubt.
Yeah. The thing is that like,
actually,
this is not as simple as people seem to think it is. And I've made a number of arguments with this. You can see my debate on the subject. I think that like the figure of like the person who uses abortion as birth control just isn't real. Or I'm sure there's like one woman who's just like, just loves getting an abortion. But like, that woman should not be a mother.
I saw the guy who believes it one time on a boardwalk out here in Florida. I was walking down the street and it's a messed up story, but I'll tell it anyway. He was a street preacher with the Bible, literally thumping the Bible, and he's going, "Do you know what these homosexuality is going to lead to?" And I go like, I stop and I go like, "Oh, do tell, Mr. Preacher Man." I'm stopping for the show, and he's like, "Abortions." And I was like, I made the exact look that you're doing, looking at this guy. Because I'm like, I don't think that's how it works, Mr. Preacher Man. And then he sees this woman walking down the same boardwalk with a stroller by herself, and he's like, "Oh, look, it's the single mother." And then he called her a derogatory term for a sex worker. But what he didn't realize was that her husband was behind him. And this guy decks this preacher. And he takes one of the preacher's shoes off, and throws it into the water, and then just walks away. So he made that man walk home with one shoe,
or jump into the lake to get
it was the ocean, man. He ain't, and it was like a 50-foot pier. Like, he ain't going.
Well done. That happened. A very similar thing actually happened when I was going to college at the University of Kentucky.
Yeah.
Like, there was a preacher in the free speech area, which I always thought was silly, because free speech is a thing. But I realized it was like, this is just the crazy person area.
Yeah.
Where they're allowed to yell at you. And I remember there was like this one preacher there, and he was just yelling like the 7 deadly sins at every random student who came by. And he saw this girl come by, and she was wearing a sorority shirt, and he's just like, something I probably shouldn't say on here.
Yeah.
Points right at her, and her boyfriend is freaking on the UK football team.
Oh no.
And he's right there with him. And so like I'm walking up on these people, and like there's this ginormous football player, like, how is calling my girlfriend? Like, how is that helping Jesus?
One of my other friends, when we were authentic New York City street trash, got black on black contact lenses, so they completely blacked out his eyes, and he puts on sunglasses over those, right? And he walked up to a street preacher, and he drops the sunglasses down, so he just sees like the black demon eyes, and he goes like, "Your God does not live here, priest," and then he just booked like down the street.
Amazing.
I'm like, that street preacher still thinks about that.
Oh man, I should have done that.
Yeah.
I used to, before I was a Buddhist.
Yeah.
I used to argue with the street preachers.
That's a mistake.
Yeah. Well, it was okay. So I used to commute through 42nd Street, and I would call this like the tunnel of crazy. So I would
Times Square for those of you not familiar.
Yeah, Times Square. So I would hop on the train from my apartment in Harlem, and I'd write it down, and hopefully I don't get a preacher in the car. Hopefully, if somebody's messing with us, it's either a kid selling candy for a basketball team he doesn't belong to, or it's break dancers, which is the best, or it's a mariachi band.
Yeah.
And occasionally a comic. But then like we get down to 42nd Street, I get off the D train or the A train, and I need to walk from there to like the R, I think. Yeah. So like I'm going down this, and it's like a huge area. There's like shops under there, like tons and tons of people pass through this. The first people I see are the Church of Scientology. And I get past the Church of Scientology, and then it's the who are the people? Because they ask you like, will you ever see your dead relatives again?
The Jehovah's
Witness. Thank you. That was the one I couldn't figure out. That was fun when I had some Jehovah's Witnesses show up at my apartment. And being a Buddhist, they're like, do you think you'll ever see your family again? I'm like, no.
My friend,
they will be reborn in the great cycle of existence.
My friend was from Turkey, and he answered the door in like the stereotypical Lawrence of Arabia man dress to a Jehovah's Witness one time. They were like, "Oh Jesus!" Yeah,
there is. Okay, so like. My mom used to do this. She used to play with her friends in college, Mormon, who's got the Mormon, which would be the Mormon comes up to their house and does his witnessing stuff. And they're like, this isn't for me, but I know someone who you would love to speak to. And then they give him like their friend, and they just send him in a circle. From person to person, just been, oh no, this isn't for me, but this I think they'd love it. So anyway, you get down there. So first you pass this Church of Scientology, and they're wanting to give you a free stress test. You get past the Church of Scientology, and you hit the Jehovah's Witnesses. After the Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're very lucky, you get like a Peruvian pan flute band, which is phenomenal. But then you keep going through the tunnel. In the middle of the tunnel, there is usually like a Latin American preacher who's like very much like a screamer. And so he's like sitting there screaming about, I don't know, gay people or whatever stupid shit he was interested in. I got in his face a couple of times. Then you keep going. And then you run into the May 21sters. Does anybody remember this? Do you remember this, Bobby?
Oh, the Doomsday guys?
Yeah.
The Rapture?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a helium balloon dummy that day.
Okay, hang on for just a second. I got to bring up this idiot. Nice.
It's Ryan Gosling.
Yeah,
You're moving up in the
using
world.
an actor for your freaking thing. So you got wrecked over race being a social construct. No, it's not getting my brain melted. It's a long conversation that you have to have with someone, and if they're constantly interrupting you, you can't make your
Oh, you
point.
got to answer the question right now. You got to answer the question right now.
Yeah,
You got to do
and
it
then
right
you
now.
start to answer the question, and they interrupt you. So,
Yeah.
like, no, like as I said, and as I eventually got to throughout the thing, there are good reasons to treat race as less in, or like, there are good reasons to delineate between race and gender. And the reason why is like there is like a male brain and a female brain. And the trans folk, they have done brain scans, and their brain is more like the brain of the gender that they identify with than the other one. This is 100% a fact, objectively true. There is no such thing as like a specifically black brain or a Chinese brain. It's all just human brains. So you can't really say like I was predisposed or I was like a person of this race born in this. That's just a delusion. So yeah. Um, I really feel like what happened here, Hector, is you think you've been given the cheat codes by like your right-wing influencers. You think that Rachel Dolezal like will destroy like a leftist. And again, I'm not even a leftist. I am an anarchist. I agree with the left more often than not, but that's not like my thing. I have not identified as a leftist since like 2014. So you think that this argument is really strong. It's not. The two things that are happening is that one, it's being used on people with no media training, usually by like a Steven Crowder or a Ben Shapiro type, who is basically, this is like a guy pretending he's a Golden Gloves boxer by like knocking out like random homeless people. Not even that. They're probably scrappy. And then the other issue is simply just being interrupted over and over again by multiple people. So yeah, it could have looked like I was a little flustered to someone that doesn't know anything about this, but like, yeah, it's just not. These two things are not. They're not comparable in any kind of realistic way. So again, I apologize, like if I came down on you a little hard right there, but yeah, it's just fucking stupid, dude.
And what the hell did that have to do with the war on women? Can someone explain that to me? Because I'm lost.
Absolutely nothing. It had to do with people being not. Well, there were two things. I was a white guy who was talking about racism. So people realized they could get their little gotcha clips because no matter what I say as a white guy, it's going to look bad. Unfortunately, I really don't give a shit. Like, as I said, when the trans woman was assuming I was defending trans people to support her, no, I call it like I see it every single time. And if I ever get to a point where I feel like I am defending someone, but I'm not being truthful, I will like leave. It'll just be done. I am not going to be pulling that shit. I think too many people think tribalistically, and too few people think critically. So yeah, there's my answer to you, Ryan Gosling.
Hey man,
Because I'm sure that's what you really look like.
You're attracting the big actors, man. You're moving up.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess
Blade
I
Runner
like the
20...
Notebook. Is he in the Notebook, or is that somebody else?
That is him, actually. Yeah, I have to sit through that one.
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049, man, that was the one that I would have gone to.
That was really good.
That was really
I saw
good.
that in the theater, like in like a 5D or whatever thing, where they're like spraying water in my face to get the rain to work and air. And I remember saying at the beginning, I was like, I wanted to see a movie. I didn't want to go to a Gallagher show.
I snuck my ramen noodles in.
Yes. Christine Stewart. Here we go. So you're a white guy. Yes, sadly.
Canceled.
I'm totally canceled. You got me. No, I'm like the whitest person that you will ever meet. Like I
will
actually
take you up on that.
Yeah. You're going to have to try hard because like I'm literally from the fucking Caucasus. Like my,
I thought you meant like culturally.
No. I mean, like my grandma. I said the story about my great grandma, like giving birth in a field because they were peasants in the Carpathian Mountains. So when, like, I forget the guy's name, but that weird freaking guy who was obsessed with like skulls and thought that like the skull from the like the Georgian skull was the most beautiful. That was like my ancestor.
That's an unfortunately broad category.
Yeah, it's a very broad category. Well, the Caucasus are a large mountain range.
No, I meant the skull thing.
Oh, the skull? Yeah. Well, you know, he was just a goth, but really racist. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. So it's more from this guy, from Ryan Gosling. It's okay for racial. No, I don't think so, because I think it's actually kind of abusive. She can take off the makeup, you know, and go back to not having cops like think that she's inherently more dangerous than a white woman. So no, like I think that is. Oh shit! Yeah, they asked me the question that didn't make any sense. Yeah. Like they were like, what if could someone
yeah, because they asked the same question trying to ask you the Rachel Dolezal question for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, over and over and over again. But like,
I thought you caught that. I thought you knew that the whole time. I
mean, I knew it, but like, you know, it's slightly different formulations of the question. I'm trying to be a little good faith here. Yeah, like, so like the whole adopt black culture and be transracial. No, it's not okay. Because again, she is appropriating the struggles of people who are actually under threat from the state and authorities in such a way that, like, you know, she can take off the makeup, they can't.
Why are we still talking about Rachel Dolezal? Didn't that happen
because
like 2009?
They think it's a got you with the left. It's so fucking stupid.
It's like 13 years ago, though.
Yeah. Oh shit! Damn you, COVID.
Yeah.
But no, okay. I said this before in the debate. I'm gonna repeat it now because they asked a question at that point that like didn't make any sense. Like, would you be okay with someone being transracial if the state did not oppress other races? Like, what the fuck? The whole reason races exist is because the state oppresses them. It uses race as a shorthand to try to figure out who is unruly and who is dangerous and who is not by waiting for them to act, but by judging them in a broad social category. That is racism. And, you know, it developed in its current form in Elizabethan England. And the races that we all recognize, it is literally just political convenience for the Elizabethans. We've only managed to slightly get out of it. Like, people have stopped thinking like Irish people aren't white and Italians aren't white. Like, yeah. So
I'm Irish Italian, so I kind of benefited on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So you should have had a skull like my freaking ancestors.
Bro, I wear like a 7 5/8 hat. Like my skull, I've got a big one.
I didn't like The Notebook. I was dragged to see that movie. You know what? Actually, I don't remember The Notebook all that well.
So the lady is like dying and she's old, and her husband's reading her the story about how she chose the poor guy that she really loved over the rich guy, and then he wrote down like a notebook to tell her the love story over and over again.
Oh my!
And I think I could fix that movie, and this is like a thing that I didn't think was going to come up here, but this is a thing I always say. I could fix that movie and make it much better if it turned out that she did pick the rich guy, and that as she's senile and older, he feels bad about it, and he's telling her a better love story to make her feel better as she's dying, and that would be the twist.
Yeah. Hang on.
But I'm a bitter bastard.
Yeah. I watched The Notebook, but I didn't really watch it. It was in college, and
it's
I brought
not
over
worth
a
going
woman
back to.
who I thought would like to watch it, but we ended up not watching it and doing other really fun things.
Playing poker.
That's what we did. Well, in some senses, yes. So I was raised Catholic, mom and I don't know what the mom and is, but I was also raised Catholic. Yeah, Catholic, former Catholic. But if I were to be a Christian, I'd probably be a Catholic, not a Nick Fuentes Catholic, because he's literally a heretic.
It's a death out. You never really get away from the church.
You can't. It's that freaking brainwashing from the beginning. No, you know what? I still remember this. My mom will still tell this story. So two things happened with me in a Catholic church. The first thing that happened was that it was Mother's Day, and my mom was pregnant with me, and the priest said on the altar, like, children, can you do something to show your mother that you love them? And my mom went into freaking labor right there. So that was the first. The second thing was that so I was raised in Italy for the first 2 years of my life, and it was on a military base. I was a Navy brat, and as such, when my parents went to mass, they went to mass like on the base. So it wasn't really a church. It was like I don't know, like in the mess hall or whatever. So I had seen a Catholic mass before, but I'd never been in a church. So when we moved from Italy back to the United States, my parents took me to a service like in an actual church with a giant ass crucifix. And I still remember, like, I remember, this is a story. I don't remember doing this. I was too young, but I've always remembered this story that my mom told. Because in the middle of the mass, at this point when everybody was supposed to be really quiet, I was just like very loudly, "Mommy, why is that man hanging from the letter T?" My mom was afraid to answer because she thought I'd be afraid of the letter T for the rest of my life.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. Hang on for a second. Bring this up. Yeah. What if we were Jewish? What if if you could? If you could elaborate on what do you mean? What if? I assume you're responding to something that I said earlier. Hang on. So we are allowed to adopt other cultures, but not oppressed ones. If I want to be Japanese and learn the language. Oh, Jesus. Okay. So would you be telling people that you were literally Japanese if you went over to Japan to be a weeaboo or whatever? So here's my feeling on this. Again, I am not a leftist, and leftists will disagree with me, but they are wrong. The fact of the matter is that, like, cultural appropriation is usually not a thing. It's not always. Sometimes it's like if you're messing with like somebody's like actual like religious symbolism, or like you're trying to pass yourself off as a member of a culture that you don't belong to, like that's fucked up. But at the same time, and I'm making Bobby uncomfortable.
No, not really. I'm actually kind of on board right now.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're with me here. Yeah. But at the same time, culture is a creation of human mind. No one owns culture. No one can own culture. And the fact of the matter is that, like, humans will always take what they like from other humans and riff on it and do their own thing. At the moment, people are coming down really hard on that. Like, they're getting mad at, like, this was several years ago, but they're getting mad at like white kids that wear dreads. They're getting mad at like a girl that wears like a Chinese looking dress to prom. That's fucking ridiculous. But the reason they're getting mad is they're genuinely being hurt by the state, and they're not able to fight the state. So what do? They go after the guy accidentally kicking salt in the wound. And that's what a lot of that comes from. I think it's fucked up. But like also it's understandable, and probably shouldn't dress particularly provocative to mess with people who already have enough problems in their lives, unless they're dicks, in which case do it.
I think the issue is with like exploitation, where it's if somebody's wearing like a Chinese style dress, I think most people wouldn't care, except for some people
entirely super online weirdos.
People. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But like, it winds up becoming an issue where people like cynically whitewash and appropriate the culture as like a commodity and try to exploit it, which is what kind of is the concept of cultural appropriation. The way it gets taken too far, you're right, or taken too far. I don't even say taken too far. It's the way it's interpreted by people who haven't done enough reading to actually understand the concept sometimes, who mean well, but they don't know what they're talking about, is like, you're wearing dreads, therefore bad,
Yeah.
Not you're wearing dreads, therefore wash your hair.
Thanks. You came in here a little aggressive, and I probably, I've had a bit of mead, but yeah, I'm
Try gin.
happy to, be helping you out here with some of the answers here. It's difficult conversations that a lot of people don't have, and most of the people that have them don't have the ability to express them to someone who is outside of their particular group. It's a damn tragedy. Sorry, Bobby, I cut you off. What were you saying?
Oh, no, I just said try gin.
Oh, gin. This is going to hurt in the morning because I am way further in this meet than I
You gotta get
intended to
some
be.
army training, you boy.
Uh, you know, yeah, I drink entirely too much. Not at the moment. I'm really trying to get out of it because like genuinely, I love drinking. It's poison and it wastes my time.
It's true.
But then sometimes I've had my time wasted by fucking idiots on the internet.
Beers prove God loves us and wants us to be happy.
Thank you, Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah.
See, these are the classy people I hang out with, the people that quote Benjamin Franklin and not for, I love that I got Nick on the is ought.
Yeah. There are, like, somebody was talking about, like, that there were, I think it was a super chat, saying that there were people who have, like, addressed it. There are proposed solutions to
Thank you,
it,
Dan.
but there isn't like a unified, like, proposed complete rebuttal of it, like they were implying, in case you're
Yeah. Well,
curious.
so also, yeah, is ought you can't really draw because morality is inherent. Like to make a moral judgment, you are making a judgment. You can say that what people usually mean when they say that morality is objective is they mean that they feel that morality is outside of their individual control, which is true. And that is because morality is, there's several different layers of it. There is the morality of your particular subculture. There is your personal morality. Then there's the morality of the society overall. And then there is the law. And these things don't ever completely line up, So I feel like morals, the ability to have morals is something that I think is probably hard coded into the human mind by evolution. And I think the reason it is because it helped us collaborate and survive on a hostile planet. So like the right usually loses their shit about morality, like because they feel like if you take God out of it, if you take the magic out of morality and like make it relative, then suddenly it is arbitrary. It's not.
It's really funny too, because if they wanted to resolve that, they could go to Kant, like, and
Yeah.
do like synthetic a priori judgments, or like morality derived from reason alone,
But
from
then they'd have to
critique of
read a
pure reason.
book.
Yeah, well, I just said from critique of pure reason, which they think, which lately they've thought that it means that Kant was anti-reason, which is hilarious to
So
anyone.
if morality is subjective, does that mean you're against liberal world order? Yes. Wanting to spread universal human values on the world, such as Africa, by forcing LGBT. Okay, so
You jumped the gun like a motherfucker.
I did. Well, no, I fuck liberals. They're garbage.
Yeah.
But no, okay. So am I against liberal worlds wanting to spread? I would say that I don't think forcing morality on anyone is ever a good idea, to tell you the truth. I don't think it's something that you can force. You can prevent them from hurting gay people, and you can provide them with educational opportunities. But what are you going to do? Someone doesn't want to learn about gay people, so you drag them into school and tie them to a chair and give them like a freaking PowerPoint presentation where their eyes are held open by, like by Clockwork Orange things. No, like, I think that it is a good idea that, so I'm a Buddhist with Soka Gakkai. We are the largest lay Buddhist organization in the world. We are in 192 countries, and we are dedicated to Buddhist humanism. It's very important. And a big part of this is, recognizing your fellow humans as potential Buddhas, just like you are. In fact, everyone in my sect, we believe that everyone is a sleeping Buddha. It's not that they might become a Buddha someday. They're already a Buddha. They just haven't figured it out. And so, when people have destructive ideas and hold other people in contempt and think that they are their superiors inherently, especially because of some aspect of them that they cannot control, that is an expression of fundamental darkness. It is getting wrapped up in the ego, into thinking that you are just you and your body ends at your skin and you are not connected to world and time, and you're just this tiny spark, that runs around in your head from, cradle to grave. That's ridiculous. It's not true, but when people get sucked into it, they start to think that some people are better than others, that we're all a universe in and of ourselves. We are the universe eyeing. Everyone is I. You all know you're you, and where forever such beings exist throughout all galaxies, you are all of them. And when they come into being, that's you coming into being. And you know that, I know that, but it's very easy to forget because of what consciousness physically and mentally does. Like, being conscious is necessarily a singular experience, at least for humans. Like, maybe there's a hive mind somewhere, but I don't know. So should you provide information that can teach people to not be prejudiced and to not hold other people in contempt? Absolutely, you should provide that. Should you force them, like at gunpoint? No. That's one, that's not going to work. And two, you're still falling into the same trap. You think you can force this person to become good and righteous, when you are doing something that is explicitly evil and not righteous, which is, coercing someone who's not ready to move on to a higher stage of consciousness. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, teach people who have bad ideas, and those bad ideas may cause them to treat people worse than they otherwise would, that there is a better way. But don't do it at gunpoint, and and don't I would say don't equate it with a giant culture war. Really, this is person to person. We're all complicated human beings trying to relate to one another. And the damage really comes when we think beyond that, and we impose ourselves and our self-righteousness upon the world. Something that I'm very careful about, and tell you the truth, a lot of people on the far left are very self-righteous. So continue, Bobby.
Oh, I was just going to say it's like a fundamental misunderstanding about how international, not you, but the question, fundamental misunderstanding about how international relations are working vis-a-vis education. And it's always super cringy when I see somebody lump Africa together as a monolith, because
that happened in the debate.
Yeah, it did a lot, actually. That's a good point that I kind of missed, because that my bar was set so low. But
people don't realize that Africa is so freaking huge. I think it was Alex Stein or somebody said that sickle cell anemia, black people were resistant. No, it's specifically black people in specific regions of Africa where sickle cell anemia is, or not sickle cell anemia. What's the thing that's spread by mosquitoes?
Malaria.
Where malaria is common, and Africa is so big that the group of black people who have this resistance to sickle cell anemia are a minority among the other people from Africa. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's people just thinking Africa is smaller than it actually is, and thinking of it as a monolith.
Because I've been to Mali, Congo, Central African Republic, and South Sudan, and if you told those people that they were all just Africans, they would look at you real funny. Also, it's nobody's forcing LGBTQ education on people. What he's not understanding is that it's kind of a neo-Westphalian world order that we have right now, where we respect the sovereignty of countries, but if their conduct in governing their country affects world order, the interchange between nations or the economy, then the international community kind of steps in and tries to correct for that behavior. So if LGBTQ people don't have rights, that kind of affects the ability of that country to participate in world order. So the liberal world order will try to correct that gently through education or through economic means, rather than like a military. I see him saying like, "Is this another form of white man's burden?" No, no, it's
Hang
just a
on.
form of world order asserting itself,
Yeah.
which it
Like
has for
the
hundreds.
white man's burden was just an excuse to steal their shit.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
they're like, because it's just them telling themselves a story that makes it okay to treat these people like garbage and take all their stuff. Uh, I think that making the world a better place is not the purview of a single race or single nation, right? It is the personal duty of every human being to leave this place better than we found it.
No, and personally, having been to Africa and several African nations on peacekeeping missions, the majority of the people who were involved in those UN efforts were from like non-white countries. So it's definitely not just like a white man's burden thing. So like fundamentally not understanding what's actually going on in the world right now, and it's something that kind of is personal to me. So I kind of might have spent a little too much time on that on your stream. So
No, that's great. I'm glad we're talking about it. Because I've been drinking, and now you got me talking about race, and I'm a white guy, so it's going to be
yeah,
very
it's not. It's gonna get a
Yeah.
little weird.
Any clippable moments yet that you saw, Bobby?
On this one, on that whole debate, like I'm not going back to that motherfucker.
Yeah, no. That's the one thing. As far as like clippable moments, nobody's watching that far in that debate.
No, I can't believe I stayed.
I can't believe you did too. I expected you ducked out.
I was doing other stuff. I was like playing some games and had it in the background.
Yeah.
Like...
So Christine Stewart, turns out my mom's last name is Jewish, found out after she died. So, and I don't know if you saw, but Nick Fuentes, Destiny actually made a great joke about it. Because like Nick Fuentes literally dropped like anti-Jewish conspiracy theories, I guess, because it wasn't, he didn't say slurs, but it was a huge TOS violation and massively unethical in every way and stupid beyond that. Were you there when that happened? Like everybody on the panel was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, you jumped in first. You're like, "Don't nuke my channel."
Yeah. Well, yeah, James. There were two times, and then there was the second time. Like he was getting close to hate speech. He didn't get there, and then he tried to pretend like I was saying it was hate speech. But yeah, so this is an interesting thing about humans, and I was trying to get to this. But again, you can't do that when you're constantly being interrupted by four people that believe in race realism, apparently. Yeah. Okay. So every human, me, you, everyone living right now, you are all a direct descendant of Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, and Confucius. This is literally a fact. We can prove it mathematically because every human has two parents. And the further back you go in the generations, the number of direct ancestors increases exponentially until you get to about 20, maybe more generations back. I'm not sure of the actual numbers here, but you get back to the time of Confucius, Cleopatra, and Julius Caesar, and you go far enough back, everyone is either the direct ancestor of everyone on Earth or no one. We are literally all the same family. And that doesn't even add in stuff like Toba catastrophe theory, where supposedly at one point the human population on the Earth, because of the explosion of the Toba volcano, every human died. Our entire species went down to about 2,000 or so individuals in sub-Saharan Africa. And we grew back out of that. But we were almost wiped out, if that theory is correct. So on two fronts there, we have like absolute facts that we are like the same family. There is no race. There is only the human race. And any, differentiations based upon region or heritable characteristics, and that was what I was really trying to get into there, it's all socially imposed. And it's imposed by the state specifically to keep the state in power. I guess, hi, sister. But also, by the way, I meant to mention this because they were talking about the American Revolution, and there was a moment I could have gotten it in, and then I wasn't able to. I am actually like a direct. I'm a descendant of Nathan Hale, the guy who was famously executed by the British and has a gorgeous statue of like doing good. Nathan Hale. I don't know if you really look like that. Probably didn't. But yeah, that's one of my ancestors. Also, I'm related to the guy who spoke for a really long time before the Battle of Gettysburg.
Runs in your family there, brother.
I never shut the fuck up. Okay, so I'm sorry, Bobby. I've been rolling over you to answer all this shit.
No, man. Like, keep going. You're good. Like,
Okay, so hang on. Christine Stewart, hate speech doesn't exist. Bobby, you want to take this one or should I?
yeah, it does. Should like hate speech laws exist is like a debate that I guess is worth having, sort of. But like hate speech absolutely exists. You heard some of it in the debate. You've heard it in real life. We have had this national discussion my entire life. There are people who use slurs to purposely put people down. There's hate related speech like a lot of places in our society, especially lately dedicated against LGBTQ people.
Mm-hmm.
um
That groomer shit.
yeah, exactly.
There
I
are some
don't
people like I think there's some people who genuinely think it's a thing,
They
but
do.
there are people spreading it because they are sharpening knives. I
Yeah,
guarantee you.
yeah, and you're right, it absolutely results in violence. The right wingers do like 90% of the political murder and violence in this country.
100% in 2018.
Was it 100% in 2018? I think
100% in 2018. It was mostly, it wasn't all Nazis, though. It was the larger group was sovereign citizens.
yeah.
And most of their violence is them killing cops because they're the biggest cop killers in the country.
But
And nobody wants to talk about it because they're right wing.
you get this speech, like this, and like it does result in violence. I mean, like famously, if you go back like a long way now, I guess, but like the Tulsa race massacre was a direct result of like constant hate speech and like riling people up. Anti-gay panics in this country have been the direct result of hate speech and riling people up. We're living through one now in Florida, actually down here. Uh, uh, LGBTQ teachers are now no longer allowed to mention their same-sex spouses to their students because it violates a law that the governor passed down here.
Oh yeah. By the way, the conservatives seem to be thinking that Trump is on his way out, and they're trying to say DeSantis is gonna be the new.
I still think I still think it's going to be Trump in 2024. I don't
think he'll probably run.
I think what we have to remember is on that front is that literally everyone who voted for Trump will literally vote for anyone who runs on the Republican ticket.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, hang on, I don't know about that. I'm going to tell you why. I very rarely sing Trump's praises, but the man is charismatic. He's charismatic in a way that no other Republican is, especially not DeSantis or any of these fucking.
Watch some DeSantis speeches. He copies the mannerisms. Enough.
Yeah, are you sure? Does he copy them convincingly?
Oh, not convincingly, but enough so that it's the product that they're consuming. Yeah. If you can't get Coke, you can get Diet Coke.
Mm-hmm. So, by the way, Ancom Gamer Girl, you're my favorite. Well, one of them. Thank you for being up here. There's certainly a hell of a lot of transphobic hates. Yep.
Yeah.
There was somebody tricked James into reading like apparently hate speech from Kiwi Farms that even I had never fucking heard of.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that one either.
Yeah. So the thing about hate speech, this is important for people to understand. There is a psychological phenomenon called pseudo-speciation. And what this is we as humans have a natural block in our heads. We don't want to hurt other humans. We have, it's a taboo to, you don't eat your own kind for a number of reasons. And they learned this like in World War II. Most of the soldiers that fired their guns in World War II specifically on purpose on both sides shot over people's heads because they didn't want to kill anyone. They wanted to shoot their gun, so they felt like they were doing something. And if somebody came up, they couldn't get mad at them. I'm trying to kill the enemy, but they really weren't.
We fixed that problem, by the way.
Yeah, don't remind me. So after World War II, the generals all got together and they're like, okay, we have got to figure out a way to make humans kill each other when we want them to. And that is as horrifying as it sounds. And so what they do is they do stuff. I remember, I think this was from the 70s. I don't know if they still do it, but like thinking of them as a silhouette.
Yeah, so you get a human-shaped silhouette that falls over, and you get positive reinforcement, and you're told to go to a happy, emotional place as you're firing your gun. So you're psychologically conditioned to have positive emotional reactions when a human-shaped target falls over, and you're trained to shoot at a human-shaped target that pops up real quick.
Yeah.
And then
So
falls
then
down.
your first instinct is kill.
Yeah, aim center mass.
Yeah, and this is where I want to quote L'Internationale. If they insist on making heroes of us, they will learn that our bullets are for our own generals. Sadly, that is a bit too idealistic these days, or at least they mainly made that go. So that's about the most radical thing I've said in a while, and I'm sure someone will take it out of context. Yeah, so
going to jail.
A little bit. Conservatives take any more because now we no longer have a right to privacy.
Yeah,
and that is going to crack down.
You don't get to complain, man. My entire state is in the Border Patrol's warrantless search zone.
Oh shit! You know what I love about living in New York. So like in New York, we would get like, I don't even know how I got on this list, but we get like text updates of where ICE was and how we could go and fuck with them. Oh, that was fun. Yeah, it's very interesting to like not realize how you got on a list of like anti ICE direct action.
Brent would like that shit. Put him on there.
Oh yeah, and I never did anything because never break a law for any reason. I'm an anarchist. Always obey the law. So all right, so we're gonna go through here because there's something that came up. So if race and culture is irrelevant in all social constructs, wouldn't that point towards a new world liberal? So without borders, yes, because borders are stupid. But you would not have a... How the fuck do you even have a one world government without borders?
Well, I mean, it would be one government, so there logically wouldn't be any borders.
Yeah, I don't think that could ever be maintained, to tell you the truth. Like, I know that's like a major like right-wing conspiracy theory, but...
Well, the technology exists where it's more possible
than it's ever been.
But like it's also, put it this way: there was a Habsburg emperor, and I can't remember what his name was, and he tried to conquer Europe with the Habsburg army when they controlled Austria and Spain, and he failed miserably, and he actually wound up retiring to a monastery, and he tried to get 2 clocks to tick exactly in time with each other, which was a big thing back then. And he couldn't do it. And he sat down and he's like, here I sit. I tried to get Europe to all dance to the same music, and I can't even get these goddamn clocks to tick together. There's like a thing where people think in terms of like Rome or like the Mongols or whatever, where you unify the world under one power. That's not really how it's worked. We built world order, especially since like the late 1500s. Where you don't have the one power that completely dominates militarily, but you have like different economic powers that rise and whatnot. And yeah, there's probably not going to be like a one world government. I would look for like transnational bodies like the UN to try to probably get a little more power in terms of enforcing orderly cohesion on the world over the next like 50 to 100 years, but you're not going to see one liberal world government. And then race being a social construct doesn't make it irrelevant. Money's a social construct, and it's very relevant. That's
as is time, and he couldn't get the 2 fucking clocks.
It's a really I can't remember the guy's name, but it's a funny end to this emperor's story.
Well, yeah. Just because something is a social construct does not mean that it's arbitrary, and it doesn't mean that it's not important. Race is obviously very important. If I didn't think it was important, I would be like, yeah, sure, whatever. Rachel Dolezal is black because she wants to be. I don't give a shit. But no, like, it's important because people get their lives ruined over this shit. People get treated like garbage time and time again. Richard Nixon, in particular, admitted, like his freaking chief of staff admitted it, like the entire war on drugs exists so he could attack hippies and black people.
Yeah.
And the guy says, like right at the end, like John Ehrlichman, he says, did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. The whole point was just to attack black people. So, is it a shitty thing to do to pretend you're black?
I'm
Yes.
sorry, I just saw a funny comment at the bottom.
Oh yeah.
It makes me chuckle.
Oh, is this the borders are not stupid, or was it something else?
Yeah, they called you a concubine.
You're a concubine. Were you trying to call me a cock? I wouldn't mind being a concubine if the chick was hot.
You're in the harem, Brent.
Yeah. The problem with being in the harem is there's the freaking eunuchs, and those guys are just dicks. But
they're not.
Call them dicks.
Did you ever hear about the one Ottoman emperor who they used to like sequester the heirs in like this kind of really luxurious prison in Istanbul, and then like he lived there his whole life, and the actual guy who was supposed to inherit the throne died, and this guy who had been like basically in prison his whole life wound up becoming Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. And he wore iron shoes because he hated women so much that he wanted them to leave the room and hear him coming. So like he wore iron shoes so you would hear him coming, and all the women would have to leave, and he wouldn't permit any music to be played. I'm like, that.
So he's just a complete and utter nutball because he was raised in a harem his entire life.
I'm like, this bro would have a fortune.
Yeah. Oh, he would definitely have a fortune. He would be a philosopher like Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, exactly. They would get along great.
No, so okay, we had some other stuff here. Borders. So we're going to talk about borders really quickly. Here's the problem. First off, borders are imaginary. Like, they're 100% a creation of state power. Now, people will say, oh, but there's a river there, there's a mountain there. The border isn't there because there's a river or a mountain directly. It's there because a military had to stop there, and some other military took over on the other side. The reason borders are stupid to begin with is, one, a world without borders would be $76 trillion richer. And why is that? Well, the fact is that there are lots of people in the world, and a number of them are not able to go where their skills are most useful. So we are not able to actually tap into the full power of the human population because of these borders, which exist really just because the upper class of one country was not able to push a little bit further against the upper class of another country. Plus, and I will say this, borders are immoral because you can never, there's no one around here, I guarantee you, no one in the chat, no one you talk to will ever be able to make an ethical case to stop the free movement of peaceful people. It just does not exist. It is always unethical to stop the free movement of peaceful people. The only corollary on this would be like in a situation like COVID, where you're trying to keep a specific disease out of your country. And, once people use that as an excuse and really just start, being assholes to people for no good reason, like even that begins to become less desirable. So, yeah. If we had there's no good reason why I or you or anyone else can't go anywhere where we can find ourselves taken in by a community and work with other people, and build and contribute. I always remember this because, as I said, my family were peasants in the Carpathian Mountains. And when my grandmother wrote the history of our family, and at the time she told me about it, and I was like 18, I was just like, okay, yeah, that's cool. And I didn't care. But, years after she died, I sat down and I read, the history of my mother's side of the family. And it was intensely beautiful. And one of the things that I will never forget is the reason they were able to come to the United States in the first place, the reason I'm here, the reason my son was born in what I would consider the best hospital in New York City within 5-6 generations, was because America lowered its immigration rules and allowed people like my ancestors in. That changed everything for my parents. I remember one of the things that my parents and my grandparents and everything for my line and for me, in fact, I remember actually one of the things that my grandmother focused on in the story was that they were always hungry. And, she talked about like the freaking Cossacks riding into the town, pushing everybody around. She talked about the government coming in and stealing food from people based upon how many windows they had in their houses, taxes. I have grown up to be an anarchist. I have grown up to have nothing but disdain for the upper class. And I can do that because I met them, because I lived in frickin' Manhattan as an artist, and I rubbed shoulders with all classes from the lowest to the highest. And it's fucking ridiculous, I've been inside an apartment where the toilet is literally constructed of solid gold. Are these people better? No, they're fucking idiots, just like everyone else. In fact, they're probably a little dumber because they haven't had to work as hard as everyone else because they got into this ridiculous position. But the fact is, nationality is imaginary. And most of the time, it is one group of rich people getting the rest of us to sacrifice ourselves and our children to fight the people underneath the other group of rich people, when really the enemy is the freaking rich people above everyone, the ones that push us into this situation, the ones that steal our surplus value with our labor. Because every hour you work as an hourly employee, you're making a hell of a lot more than what you're paid. And you don't get any say in how much you do. If you make a ton of profit for the company, you get nothing. You just get your normal wage. So, yeah, the way that we are living now, and I wanted to mention this in the debate, but I didn't have time to, because I said, is there a war on women? Yes, there's a war on women, and there's a war on men. This is a war on everyone by the elites that control the state. And when I'm talking about that, I not as freaking
Nick.
Well, yeah, thank you, Nick. Jesus, I forgot his name. I'm not talking about freaking Jews or some other minority, because that is absolutely ridiculous. I am talking about the people that literally, like, they have names and addresses, and we know that they control our countries. These are the people who are causing problems for all of us. These are the people who may very well end the human race, either through global warming or nuclear annihilation. It's looking more nuclear annihilation. Thank you very much, Vladimir Putin.
He's not going to launch.
No, I don't think he will at all. He would have by now.
That's another stream, though.
Yeah, we do need to talk about that. But yeah, so my point is, in a very long and drawn out way, and I swear I will let Bobby talk because he's way more knowledgeable than I am on this. If you want an enemy, look up. And the thing is that most people are afraid to look up. And the reason they're afraid to look up is because the people at the top also sign their paychecks. I mean, not really. They pay someone else to sign their paychecks. But
direct deposit, man. Who gets a paycheck anymore?
Oh, shit. I'm so old.
Yeah.
The point is, people are afraid to bite the hand that feeds them.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not really the hand that feeds them. It's just the hand that paid for the hand that feeds them. Than to stand up, for themselves and their neighbors and their community and say, yeah, basta, no more. Because, honestly, all it's going to take is for, like, if you're worried about like a one world government or something, all it's going to take is for all of us, or hell, even most of us, 80% of us, to stand up together at once and say, we're not doing any more work for you. We're not fighting your wars anymore. We are going to do things ourselves, and we're cutting you out of the equation. You're not getting a single dollar from us. And if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. All right. I just went and ranted for a while. Bobby, what do you got?
That was pretty good. I mean, like, I'm a sock dem, so I'm a little, more tolerant of having a state than I think you are.
Well, okay. So it's important to understand this. When I talk, and everybody listen to this, I always exaggerate. And the reason I do that is because dialogue, and it is dialectic. So I will push further in one direction because I think that the direction has been pushed too far in another direction. So someone says, for instance, like, you get arrested by a police officer. You go home to people and you're like, oh, I got arrested last night. And everybody's like, what did you do? They're already assuming that the officer was right to arrest you, which is almost never the case, or at least mostly never the case. So I will push a little harder in the anarchist direction. Now, here's the funny thing, and you guys will see this if my ideas ever catch on and people start doing this shit and getting really up. I'm going to switch. I'm going to switch to some other position, because my job as an artist is to stand outside of society and cast a vision to those who are within the pale from someone who is without the pale. That's what we do. That's what artists have done, artists and shamans, and that's what we've done since time immemorial. And unfortunately, in today's capitalist society, it is, how shall I say this? It doesn't pay well. I figured out a way to make it work, but yeah. So, Bobby, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh no, not at all. Yeah, the one world government thing. It's like a silly conspiracy theory at this point. Like, I think I said all I needed to say about like the practicality of actually like establishing that. It does kind of harm people in real life, because it casts aspersions on like various international efforts to actually make the world a better place, like UN peacekeeping, or like United Nations like charity drives, or restoring stability to certain countries that are actually like asking for assistance. It's not something that you got to worry about in the United States. Like, the UN paratroopers aren't coming in tomorrow to steal your Bibles and your guns. It's just not happening.
Yeah,
it's silly.
By the way, so
like
here, seriously, Vladimir is probably more honest than anyone. Yeah, he is. He's just also fucking nuts.
Who is Putin?
Putin, yeah.
No, I think we bought into his like cult of personality, man. I think
he bought into his cult of personality.
Yeah, I think everybody did, but like I don't think he's like as smart as everybody has been thinking he is for the last few years.
No, he's definitely not. And people have been. Putin has been in power since I was in high school. I remember when he first took power, and a newspaper that was critical of him got raided by like masked men right after he got in. There's the whole fear of the KGB. The thing is that these people shit every day. They're just like us. People do not understand like how common brilliance is. It really is. Like, we as humans are a incredibly inventive species. And also, like, being smart is no guarantee that you will ever be granted any kind of a position of power. And a lot of the time, it'll actually hobble you, because a smart person will sound insane to a stupid person. I know this because I've talked to the modern day debate chat. Oh God, they're so dumb. But no, like, joking around, all joking aside, like, I have met some really brilliant people in my time. A lot of them are having a really hard time. It was one of the things that actually pushed me in a radical direction, because I saw so many exceptional people, like incredibly exceptional people. If we're rating people as far as intelligence and drive and skill on like a 1 to 10, these people were all 9s, and they were all working like fucking fast food jobs and shit, because they had other aspects to their identity or their background that didn't allow the people who were the gatekeepers to understand just how brilliant they were. And it killed me to see it, to tell you the truth. And then the guy was asking me if like I became a radical ANCOM, by dosing on rage. No, it wasn't dosing on rage. It was seeing time and time again how individuals who had so much to contribute and nothing but the sheer mad desire to contribute, and watching them get shut down again and again and again by the larger society, while simultaneously watching idiot trust fund babies get every freaking opportunity, when these, like, they couldn't knock two rocks together, but their daddy knew the right person. And like, that is how the elites function. It has nothing whatsoever to do with skill. Like, that's great. Or intelligence. It has to do with two things. One, Do you have a name? Will people do shit for you and fall over you because they heard that name? And two, and this is the other big thing, do you have family members who are connected to someone else with a name? That's it. That is the difference between success and failure. That is the difference between insane riches and the gutter. And it's really stupid. And we as a planet could be so much further along right now if we just got past this idiocy. So I'm sorry, Bobby, I have ranted now entirely too long. So I gotta say something because I'm done monologuing. Holy shit, Bobby is gone. Hang on. I will send him a message. I think he got kicked. He's supposed to save me after I've like hit my point there. That's one of the reasons why I bring him on. You get kicked. All right, so we've got some other people going in. I will keep going right now because I've been at this long enough and I'm blowing everything down. If it's dialectical, your position is affected then as well. Yeah, it is, but I try to deal with that. Solidarity is the only... Yes, absolutely. Oh, Bobby's back.
Yeah, I hit the button.
You left me hanging there, Bobby. Yeah. By the way, so I watched the debates. That's just ignore that shit. So Hector here, he told me to debate infrared. I would love to debate infrared. Fun fact, I was supposed to be debating with infrared against Stefan Molyneux, and infrared pulled out at the last minute. I'm not sure if it was either, like, I'm cool with tankies, like, I'm perfectly fine with forming an anti-fascist front, though I think infrared would probably be pretty aggressive towards me. But yeah, like, he dropped out of that. It was a shame because we could have formed. Otto von Bismarck famously said that the crowned heads of Europe will quake with fear if ever the black and red reunite. So yeah. Also, by the way, though, I'm mad at him for being a dick to Luna Oy, who is amazing and adorable.
I can't tell that he's a leftist a lot of times that I hear him talk.
Well, he's not.
Exactly. No, I mean, like, I can't tell that he's supposed to be a Marxist a lot of the times I hear him talk. If you know what I'm saying.
I know what you mean. I think he's a tanky and not a Marxist. Like, okay, if that makes sense.
Tankies are supposed to at least be, like, nominally Marxist.
Yeah.
And I could tell that, like, a Stalinist is a Marxist a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell that with him. But
you know what's just weird as hell? Yeah. Him and that other guy just appeared completely out of nowhere with a whole lot of followers.
Which other guy?
The other one that they tried to replicate the Sam Cedar moment.
Like, yeah, I think I remember.
Yeah, it's a J name or something. I can't fucking think of it.
Not Peter Coffin, but the other one.
Hang on, here we go. Oh yeah, God, Peter Coffin. Time for me to sleep, but thanks for the chat. Yeah, thank you. To it in the gym. Please do, Hector. I'm happy you came in here. I'm happy you rattled my cage a little bit. I really liked debating, like moderating that debate, and I was
Hinkle. This guy's name was Jackson Hinkle.
Hinkle, that guy.
Sorry.
Oh, God, that sounds so made up.
It sounds like a really shitty World War I fighter pilot.
Yeah, good job. Loved every minute. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Christine. I'm really happy you guys are around here. One of the things I freaking hate about internet and online discourse and all this shit is, like, everyone's got their damn little bubble of the good people and the evil people out there. And the fact of the matter is, again, as I said in the debate, as I said tonight, we're all just complicated humans trying to relate to one another. And honestly, a lot of the stuff people talk about ideology, it's just bullshit. It's people trying to find a way to stand out or find some kind of meaning within their lives. Let's look down here. Yeah, I think you're right. It is all about it. And, I prefer conservative Marxism to conservative whatever the fuck they're doing now. Yeah. Hinkle sounds. He sounds like a Simpsons character.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know if you got it, by the way. I asked I fucked up on this, but I asked Nick Fuentes if he saw the meme where he was Waylon Smithers trying not to look at the window.
I did hear that. I thought that was funny as hell.
Wonder how mad at me he is. I hope it's not too much.
I doubt he's even. Yeah. I'll send you something that I saw about him getting angry.
Okay, good. Yeah. I know, like Hunter Avalon in the previous one was like really aggressive towards him.
I'll tell you offline.
Oh, please do. Yeah, and by the way, so Hunter Avalon's wife, she is awesome. Like Fuentes was going after her, but like, yeah, she and I think I did a chat with her at some point. I forget who, but she very smart woman. Well done, Hunter. I'm balancing this out after Fuentes said all that shit about your wife, and you very wisely did not react. I'm happy you did. All right. So, Bobby, you got anything else?
No, man. It's late, and that was 2 hours after the 3-hour thing, so I got 5 hours devoted to this shit.
I am so sorry. Beware of the transforming Tengu. Is that...
That's a reference to something I'm not catching.
Yeah, is Ancom Gamer Girl, is that a reference to Sekiro? I hope it is, because I did a video on Sekiro with Caleb.
That or it's Metal Gear Solid 2.
Oh yeah, I gotta say the debate. So Caleb, catches a lot of flack. I've been mad at him quite a bit lately for a number of things, but I really treasure trying to explain Sekiro to Caleb.
That was really funny. You guys should play.
Yeah.
You guys should play Deus Ex 1 together.
That would be fun. Oh my god, we should do a let's play of something. Yeah. That would be so fun.
Like Deus Ex, man. Like that would be the perfect.
Yeah.
Or Cyberpunk.
Oh, I did 2 trans people in sports debates, actually. Yeah. One was against and ironically, like the best one was against, of all people, like Sargon of Akkad. Like, yeah, he said some awful shit during the debate, and he had some wacky views, but like you look at my debate about trans women in sports with him, and you look at my debate with Alex Stein. That was not even a debate with Alex Stein. That was just a crazy screaming match. But like the one with like Sargon, we actually got into some pretty interesting things. And I kind of wish he didn't have the brand that he has now, because I feel like he's got a level of intelligence. He has a very warped perspective. But like, I was able to engage in good faith with him. And sadly, that was lacking both tonight and the last time I talked about that. All right, I will catch you. Oh, we have a new person. Hello. Shia, but I'm not even going to try to pronounce it.
I think you're good on that one.
All right. Well, Bobby, you can go. I will talk to this new person and see if they had something to say, unless you want to stick around. I don't want to keep you because I already made you sit through 3 hours of this crazy shit.
I would, but it's 3 a.m. here, so I got a morning.
Oh God, what time is it where I am? Oh, by the way, I now know Fuentes is on Central Time.
Yeah, he's in Chicago, I think.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, there's like a whole thing.
It's the second city for a reason.
Yeah, they just took all the shit from New York and just moved it out west a little bit.
All right, I will catch you later, Bobby. I'm gonna.
All right, brother. You have a great night.
Yeah. All right, Bobby is gone. I kicked him out, and it's just me. Does anybody have anything for... Oh, the Raging Tengu with his face so red. Yeah, shit. I tried to get that in at tonight's debate with Destiny, because I was just like, dude, Destiny, keep pressing him. He's going to turn into a freaking red-faced goblin. Though I think Tengu is honestly, yeah, that's a bit better. I'm sticking with Red Tengu for Alex Stein. But that was great. Like, people were like, hey, how did the debate with Alex Stein go? And I was just like, well, his face twisted into a fucking evil red mask. And he made an excuse and ran away. That was fun. Okay. you guys all have a wonderful evening. And by the way, we need a sports team. Maybe I'll get like an artist or something to make a shirt, but it's like, Brenton Lengel, or I don't know, maybe I won't put my name on it, but like Go Raging Tengus. I think that would be an incredible shirt. Who would buy it? Do we have here? We got 4 people still watching. Will any of you buy the shirt? Will all of you buy the shirt if I make a Raging Tengu shirt? Because that's a good sports team name. I'm going to say that all of you said you definitely would buy it because I haven't gotten any responses right now. I am owned by the internet. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. If you want to, please watch the debate or don't because it's garbage. Yeah, and you all just keep asking hard questions. Keep making the argument for a better, saner world, and keep relating to one another with intelligence, patience, and I would say compassion. That's the most important part. Compassion. All right. I'll catch you all later.